My grandfather passed away and left me an old wooden house nestled deep in a remote village in the northern mountains. It was a place completely isolated from the noisy outside world. Surrounding the house was a dense orchard, cooling and shady during the day, but when night fell, the drooping shadows of the trees cast upon the windows looked like twisted human figures. Along with the house keys, the lawyer handed me a handwritten letter from my grandfather. The letter was very short, just a few lines of instructions regarding the family altar. But on the last line, his handwriting seemed to tremble and was pressed much harder into the paper than usual. If you ever hear someone calling your name between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., absolutely do not open your eyes or look out the window. Pull the blanket over your head and pretend to be asleep. Remember, well, absolutely do not look. At the time, I just smiled, brushing it off as an old man's superstition. I was a materialist. I never believed in ghosts or curses. I moved in the following week to clean the place up and put it on the market. The first 3 days passed in a peaceful, almost boring tranquility. The chirping of crickets and the rustling of the wind through the jackfruit leaves were the only sounds I heard. But on the fourth night, everything changed. That night, the air grew thick and strangely oppressive, despite it being the middle of autumn. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Suddenly, the deafening chorus of crickets outside stopped dead. The silence hit like a physical weight, abrupt and heavy, as if someone had just pressed the mute button on the entire world. I glanced at the glowing clock on the nightstand. 2:15 a.m. At that exact moment, I heard it. A very faint sound rustling against the dry leaves in the yard. Footsteps. Someone was walking around my house. The steps didn't sound human. They were dragging, slow and hesitant, as if something incredibly heavy was struggling to move. Cold sweat began to bead on my forehead. I lay motionless on the bed, straining my ears. Then the footsteps stopped right below my bedroom window. The window was an old-fashioned double-door wooden type, with small gaps between the wooden slats. Eddie. My heart seemed to stop beating. It was someone calling my name. But the most terrifying part wasn't the fact that someone was calling me in the dead of night in the middle of nowhere. It was the voice itself. It was my mother's voice. Eddie, open the door for me. I'm so cold. The voice rose, thin, trembling, and full of sorrow. My mother currently lived in a city hundreds of miles away. It was impossible for her to be here. But the tone, the inflection, the weary sigh at the end of the sentence, it was identical down to the last detail. Logic screamed at me that it couldn't be her. My grandfather's warning echoed clearly in my mind. Absolutely do not look outside. I pulled the thin blanket right up to my chin, squeezed my eyes shut, and tried to regulate my breathing. Eddie, why won't you look at me? I know you're awake. This time the voice was no longer trembling. It became cold, sharp, and carried a flat, soulless resonance, like a machine playing back a corrupted audio file. Accompanying it was the sound of sharp fingernails lightly scratching against the wood of the window. The scratching was slow, emitting a piercing screech. Scree. Scree. Curiosity and sheer terror began to tear at my mind. Was someone playing a sick prank? Was there some psycho standing out there? Human instinct urged me to identify the threat. Just a peek through the crack just for a second to see who it was. As if hypnotized, I slowly threw off the blanket and lowered my feet to the cold floor. I tiptoed, step by careful step, towards the window. The scratching outside abruptly ceased. The silence was deafening. I pressed my face against the wooden door, peering through the narrow gap. Outside, under the dim moonlight, no one was standing there. The brickyard was empty. The base of the jackfruit tree was empty. I breathed a heavy sigh of relief, my heart rate starting to settle. Perhaps I was just hallucinating from exhaustion. But just as I was about to turn away, my eyes instinctively flicked upwards. It wasn't standing on the ground. It was clinging upside down to the eaves of the roof, directly above the window. A creature with a human silhouette, but its limbs were elongated and broken at unnatural angles. Its skin was a sickly pale white, wrinkled like a waterlogged corpse. And the face. It was wearing a face identical to my mother's, but the eyes were just two pitch-black hollow pits, devoid of whites. It was hanging upside down, pressing that grotesque face right up to the very gap I was looking through. The moment my gaze met its black, empty sockets, its mouth, stretching unnaturally wide to its ears, slowly curled into a demonic smile. In a deep, gravelly voice, no longer pretending to be my mother, it whispered through the crack, the sound burrowing straight into my eardrums. "I see you." I jolted backward, tumbling to the floor. My limbs scrambled uselessly. I couldn't utter a single sound. I crawled backward toward the corner of the room, my eyes still glued to the closed window. Outside it was dead silent. No more scratching. No more dragging footsteps. But a moment later, another sound echoed, causing the blood in my veins to freeze solid. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't a knock from outside the window. It was a knock coming from the inside of my bedroom door. It was already inside the house.